Welcome to the Witness Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Trader, and this is episode 19. As we get into episode 19, I first wanted to just mention that if this episode or any other episode you've heard so far really blesses you, and you happen to know someone that you think might relate to some of the content on here, please take a moment and share this podcast with them. That is the single most important thing you could do to support this podcast. You know, we're selling merch now and we have a place where you can make donations, but nothing helps spread the message that we are trying to spread here like you taking a moment to reach out to someone you know that might need some inspiration, and perhaps one of the testimonies on here could do that. So please, think of each episode as a tool to help you spread the news about God's wonderful grace and mercy. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, you'll see the share box. It's a square with an arrow pointing up through the middle of it. On iTunes, it's in the upper right-hand corner of the main episode page. Just tap that, and then you can choose how to share it, whether you want to send it in a text or some other mode. All right, I just wanted to mention that. So let's get into episode 19. It's funny how sometimes when we are going through life, things happen and they seem so random, but we just keep it moving and we don't really think twice about a lot of the things that go on. And then later, maybe even years later, we find ourselves in a situation and we look back and realize and remember that moment that we thought was just a random occurrence was actually setting us up for this moment that we are now experiencing. It's in those moments that I feel so blown away by the realization of God's hand in my life. The idea that perhaps from the very instant that He said, "Let there be light," He was setting things in motion that would one day affect my personal life. That perhaps even in that instance, I was on His mind, and you were on His mind. It's hard to comprehend. Our next witness had particular plans for her life, but for reasons she couldn't explain, she made decisions that seemed to be random and had nothing to do with the path she had intended to be on. Those decisions did, however, put her on a path that would give her an opportunity to see the hand of God up close and personal in her life. She would see the miraculous, experience His grace and mercy. She would see His provision time after time when she wasn't sure how she was going to make ends meet. But most importantly, she would come to see how much God loved her, and she would begin to understand what it means to trust God. She joins us from Antioch West, which, if you haven't heard from other episodes, is one of the sister congregations of Antioch the Apostolic Church. We have three congregations. We have Antioch West, which deals with, they're based in western Anne Arundel County. And then we have Antioch North, which is based in Baltimore. And then Antioch Central, which is located, that's where I'm at, located here in the Annapolis area. So she joins us from Antioch West. And ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I call to the stand Sister Leanne Dulin.
Will you tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, Sister Leanne Dulin, welcome to the Witness Podcast. Thank you for being willing to come on today.
Thank you for having me.
It's definitely my pleasure. I mean, we go way back. You really had a huge impact on my life and coming up in this apostolic life, as we call it. So you're somebody that God put on my list a long time ago.
Well, I'm happy to be on your list, and we go way back.
We do. It was, and I mean, just so everybody knows, we've been trying to do this for like 4 or 5 months, and we finally got it together. So thank God for that.
I used to drive you to school.
Yeah. I know.
Your grandmother lived around the corner.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
the same block.
Yeah.
Yep, that's crazy. All right, so we'll just go ahead and jump right into this. First things first, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born at the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base in Southern California.
Oh, wow.
Um, and we lived there off and on. My life. I moved a lot as a child. My dad was stationed everywhere and often. We moved pretty much every 6 months to a year until I was in high school.
Wow.
So I believe we went from California to Virginia, I believe. And then we went to California again. And then we went to Alaska. We lived on the Aleutian Island, Adak, for some period of time. My sister and my youngest sister was born later. And we went back and forth, New Jersey, back to California, depending upon where Dad's overseas tours were, multiple tours to Okinawa. We would stay with one of my grandparents or live near one of my grandparents, either in Idaho or Colorado. When Dad was in Vietnam, we lived in Idaho for that year, or maybe it was longer than that, maybe 18 months. Some of them were 18 months when I was younger. And yeah, that's what we did. So I didn't grow up anywhere. I grew up everywhere.
Typical military brat.
Very typical military brat.
Okay.
I went to 3 kindergartens, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 2 fourths. In 5th grade, I got to stay in the same school the whole year, but we moved in the middle.
Wow.
But we were still there. Different 6th grade, different 7th grade, different 8th grade. And then Dad got transferred to Quantico Marine Corps Base in Virginia at the start of my 9th grade year for a 3-year tour, which we had never experienced anything like that before, to rewrite the curriculum for the communication officers school.
Wow.
And I know those years, like I moved my furniture around in my bedroom every few months. Like I didn't have that settled in feeling. And then sometime in that 3rd year, in my junior year, they decided that they needed 1 more year to finish the curriculum. So I actually was able to graduate from Quantico High School after 4 years. And then we moved the day after graduation to Maryland.
So were these all Department of Defense schools that you were attending?
No, not all of them. Some of them were just your normal public school. 1 year in Norfolk, we attended Norfolk Christian School. It was the year that they integrated schools.
Oh, wow.
And while my parents, none of us have a prejudice bone in our body. I was not raised that way. My elementary school was less than a half mile from the house, and they were going to bus me an hour across town.
Wow.
And my parents felt like if we were going to live there, if that was our home, we would do it. But they said, we're going to move in a year. And they felt like this particular year, let's just put the kids in this Christian school. I think my grandparents might have helped with that. Not that they were against what was happening. They just felt like it was an awful lot to put on us for a short period of time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so then one of my funny stories about being at Quantico is every year they would randomly select students in the high school to study and do some testing to see how they were adapting to military life. I was randomly selected 4 years in a row.
Wow.
I suspect that was less random than we'd like to admit. But, I moved a tremendous amount for a child.
No kidding.
I sometimes laugh when Bishop talks about all the different places he lived. I think we should compare sometime.
Yeah.
It's not really a competition, but I might have him beat. I don't know.
Yeah, that's wild. So your dad was a Marine, right?
Marine officer.
And what year did he join the Marines?
He graduated ROTC, I believe, in 58.
Oh, okay.
I believe.
So
he missed the Korean War.
And then he retired.
He retired when Randy was 6 weeks old, so about 39 years ago.
Wow.
So he actually has been out longer than he's in. He'll be 91 next month.
Wow. What rank did he attain while he was in?
He was a colonel.
Wow, that's high. That's good.
Yeah.
So what was it like having a dad who was in the Marine Corps?
I have a thing in my house that says some people want to meet their hero. I was raised by mine.
That's awesome.
And I truly believe that with my dad. I have such utmost respect for him and what he did. I feel like if you go to my house, it's kind of red, white, and bluish a lot. My office at work is red, white, and blue.
I respect that.
Yeah. I loved being his daughter and being in the military with him. There were times that it was uncomfortable as a teen. I'll tell the story on myself. We had a Halloween party in the officers' quarters, but a step above ours, all of the teens in my age bracket. And they decided they were going to go out and toilet paper the commanding officers on the base's house that night. And it was just down the street. And I refused. I was scared to death. Because what you have to understand in that realm, if you got in trouble enough, your dad got kicked off base. Like it went on your dad's record.
Yeah, that's bad.
You know, like to me, that was scary. And I refused. That next morning, when we left for church, my dad didn't turn right to go to church. He turned left and drove up and just drove around that house, the commanding officer's house. And there were young Marines out there taking all the toilet paper off the trees. And then just kept going, and we went to church. I have no idea how he found out. And for Christmas that year, some friends of mine brought me a gift at the house when my parents were home, and I unwrapped it, and it was a roll of toilet paper.
Oh, no.
And I'm not one. Dad, listen to me. I did not throw toilet paper. I swear to you, I did not. I was too afraid. Now, a lot of my friends obviously weren't as afraid as I was.
Right.
But yeah, that was it. So there was some different things. I think if you talk to my sisters, their feelings about all of our travels are different than mine.
Sure.
Because they were different age.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest
Yeah, well, that
of
definitely
three.
makes a difference.
Yeah, and so there's a 5-year age difference between me and my youngest sister, and we experienced different. By the time we went to Quantico, they didn't experience the number of schools I had before. I loved the traveling. I loved going across country every summer. We would camp. I think I've been to every state park, national park. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what we did. We'd go north and go through Canada. We'd go south and go through the, Oklahoma and that. We'd go straight across. We'd do this area and that area and the Badlands. And
these are the days of the old Route 66, right?
yeah. And we had a pop-up camper, and away we'd go for
That
30
sounds
days.
awesome to me,
and I
man.
loved it, but I saw it as a little bit like vacation. One of my sisters will say, we were moving, right? And that's a fair assumption.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I grew up. And like I said, they moved up to Maryland when I graduated from high school.
Wow. So now your dad, obviously his time in the Marines covers Vietnam.
It does.
And so he served in Vietnam,
He
is that right?
absolutely did.
And what was that? Do you know anything about that?
He does
time?
not talk about it a whole lot. One of the things that happened with my dad, and I believe I have the story correct, he was in infantry, and they decided that they needed to trial having a group, I don't know what they would call it, of people that were in charge of communication, not just carrying the phone around, the whatever you call that phone. I think he gave you one.
Yeah, that's right. I have one.
Yeah, but not just that guy, but somebody that was really controlling and all that, and then you could go back to being infantry afterwards. And Dad never went back.
Okay.
So he stayed in communications his whole time. When he retired, he was chief communicator for the Marine Corps under Reagan at that time. So I remember him going to Vietnam very clearly.
How old were you at the
I'm
time? Not that we want to
12.
age you, but
12? I don't remember if I was 10 or 12.
were you aware
I
of
was
the
aware.
war?
I was absolutely aware.
Because, I mean, you were watching it on its first televised war.
Right. I can specifically remember my parents used to send letters back and forth and cassette tapes back and forth. And I can remember a huge gap in when we were getting communication from him. And I can remember watching the news with my mother and understanding that where they were talking about the war being at that time we knew that's where my dad was.
Where was he? If you
I know he was in Da Nang.
Okay, that's the major.
I know that he almost didn't make it out of Saigon. Wow. They bombed the hotel that he was staying in, and he came out with a couple of melted pennies and then couldn't get out of country because he didn't have any documents anymore.
Oh, man.
So they had to wait to get all of his documents back up because they had been destroyed in the bombing of the hotel. Yeah.
What year was he in Vietnam?
I'm afraid to answer that. I know it was probably, I'm trying to remember if we lived in Idaho or if we lived in Colorado.
Was it just one tour?
It was only one tour.
Okay.
It was only one tour. He was in Okinawa. My mom died when they'd been married 32 years, and he estimated he'd been gone 10 of them.
Wow.
Between Okinawa, Vietnam, onboard ship, those kinds of things.
So he was there when they evacuated Saigon?
When he was being taken out of country.
Which was prior to
the evacuation.
So maybe 68, 69?
That would make me 10. So that's probably around right.
Okay.
69, 70, something like that.
Yeah. And that's when the war was, I mean, the war got really hot in 68, but it was still really hot in 69, 70, 71. So he was in the thick of it.
Yes, I believe that he was. But again, he doesn't talk about it very much. He met a man from our church one time, and they talked, and they understood that they had been in that area around the same time, and they called each other by some name that I'd never heard before, and I don't even know what it was, but they had that look in their eyes of like, yeah, we know.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
So when he came home, did you notice anything different about him? Did it seem like
So I think the biggest thing for me when he came home was I don't remember him being different. I know that when he came home on R&R, that we each got to take a day off of school to spend with him. I remember that very specifically. What I remember more is things like him trying to acclimate back into the family. Yeah. Like I can remember when we lived in Colorado, which very likely might have been when he was there. I remember like that it's time different than the East Coast. So the TV shows that I liked to watch were like on at 9, and I had to go to bed at 10. But we moved to Virginia, and they were on at 10. And he didn't think I should be allowed to stay up to watch them. I mean, I know that seems like a silly thing, but he wasn't there for some of that growing up for us.
Yeah.
And so sometimes getting back in the swing of that was hard for us, and it was hard for him.
I mean, it takes a big toll. I think that's one of the biggest issues with military families in general is the acclimation to, first of all, whoever the service member is gone for a long period of time. And then they come back and they've got to try to fit back into this life that you've created while they were gone.
Absolutely.
And that can be really difficult.
Yeah. I will say my mom did a phenomenal job of keeping us grounded. We moved so very much. But I mean, we got in that house and the curtains were up and the furniture was the same. And you know, tradition can be a good thing or a bad thing depending upon how you use it. But for us, we had traditions.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter where we lived, but Easter Sunday dinner was ham, potatoes and peas. I don't remember. Those are the main things.
Sure.
Thanksgiving was this. Christmas was that. Halloween, we would come back from trick-or-treating and Mom would make donuts and we'd have hot apple cider. Like it didn't matter where we lived. Those things were consistent.
That's awesome.
And I think it really helped us stay grounded as family. My grandparents were living in Colorado and in Idaho. They came. We saw them periodically or we would see them, but we didn't have family around. But like I remember when we were at, Dad was at Armed Forces Staff College in New Jersey. That was an experience living in New Jersey, but as a teen or a young preteen. But we had Vietnamese officers for Thanksgiving dinner. And They told us that my grandmother needed to sit at the head of the table because she was the matriarch of the family.
Neat, man.
And it was cool. And I remember very specifically them being there. So my parents really worked hard at keeping us together as a family.
Yeah, you know, speaking of tradition, just for a minute, like I think as Pentecostals, which in case you don't know, we are Pentecostals on this podcast, but we have sort of a fear of tradition, I think, and we view it somewhat as a bad thing because you can get caught in this religious cycle and then all of a sudden it becomes about the traditions and not about God. But I do believe that God gave us a sense of tradition for a purpose because we do need that stability in our lives, and some traditions give us that. And what you're saying is it's obviously true. I heard somebody talk about liturgy, like the order of a service, and you know, we try not to get caught up in the liturgy, but it is there to do things decent and in order. And as long as you keep it open for God to have his way, and don't get stuck on that, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Right. I agree completely. For us, it was needed.
Right.
It was really
Right.
needed.
Right. And somebody who's maybe never had any stability in their life can walk into a church and find something that they can depend on, some kind of regular thing. It might really help them with some healing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, that was a nice little sidebar.
Nice little side there.
So, let's see. Did you grow up with any spiritual or religious background?
So we went to church. I would call us a Christian family. I feel like there were ebbs and flows of relationship, but I feel like for us, mostly in those younger years, it was mostly about going and doing the thing.
More of a Protestant?
We were Protestant. I was raised Methodist unless we were living on base and going to the non-denominational,
Right.
non-Catholic Protestant. That's the word I was looking for. Service. That did happen from time to time.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we were church-going family. I remember saying grace before dinner and stuff like that. I got baptized at the Methodist church when I was 10. I remember very specifically feeling like I felt this breeze come over me that had to have been God. And I said something to my mother, and she told me the air conditioning came on. Like, I'm not sure if she was right or not. At the time, I was like, oh, man.
We'll go with it was God.
Yeah, I'll say it was
Why
God. I can remember in college, I was the choir director at a church. And I'm just going to say I'd had a rough night and went straight to church to direct the choir and everything. And I was singing a solo. And I looked out, and this has nothing to do with me. Please understand that. I looked out and realized these people were crying. And I thought, this is because of God. This has nothing to do with you, Leanne. And you need to remember this.
Right.
And so I had experiences.
Okay.
I wasn't oblivious to God, but I don't think I'd ever truly established a relationship
So you
with
had an
him.
awareness. You
An
believed
awareness,
in him.
absolutely.
So now we're not going to get deep into it, but what it sounds like you're saying is you weren't necessarily an upright person for your entire life.
We could go with that. There's a
Okay.
few-year period there in college that I probably wasn't
Okay.
what you wanted to be.
I wanted to ask, I don't know if that was the experience, but I wanted to ask the earliest or first time you can remember feeling or being aware of God, or your first really spiritual experience when you knew there was more to this than just what you could, experience with your five senses.
I really think the two things I talked about just now were if you know me, you know I've been musical all of my life. I sang my first solos when I was 3, and continued to do so for most of my life. My degree in college was in music, all those things. But that day at that church, knowing where I had come from and what I was doing and seeing the response, and it was so striking to me that it was not me, that I had nothing to give to these people, and that whatever was affecting them had to be God.
That's awesome.
And I've never been able to get away from that.
That's awesome.
Ever.
And did that create any kind of hunger or any kind of desire?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Nope, not really.
Just an awareness.
It was just an awareness.
All right. Fair enough.
Wish I could say something different, but I can't.
So this was in college.
That was in college.
Is this around the time period where you met
George?
Yeah.
No, George, so when I graduated from college, I moved back to Maryland. I had been in college in Kentucky.
Oh, hold on a second. How
Okay.
did I was wondering how you guys made your way to Maryland.
Me?
Well, your family
Oh, because Dad was, once he was done at Quantico, was stationed here.
at Fort Meade? Or?
No, actually, he was stationed at, what was it called? ECAC? Something. He was at the naval station, the part across the water.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called there, but he was stationed there for a period of time.
Tucson?
I don't know. It's right across the Naval Academy, right across the water.
Oh, the David Taylor Research
There.
Center.
He was stationed
Okay.
there. I don't know why. And then he went to something that was off Riva Road.
Oh,
And
wow.
then and then at some point in there, he probably was still a lieutenant colonel then, maybe. I have very vivid remembrance of him being up for colonel, and him saying, the only way I'm ever going back to Okinawa is if they make me a colonel. And I was home from college, like vacation or something, and he came up the stairs. This is before cell phones, guys. You weren't calling anybody and saying, guess what? And I said, well, and he said, I'm going to Okinawa.
Wow.
I said, well, nice to meet you, Colonel. Like, you know.
Wow.
But then from there, he went to the Pentagon.
Okay.
So they were here. I was in Kentucky.
Going
And
to college. in
going to college.
Kentucky.
He spent that year in Okinawa, came back and went to the Pentagon.
So were you guys living in Annapolis?
My
Were
parents lived in Severna Park. They
Oh,
moved
okay.
from Quantico to Severna Park.
All right.
And my sisters went to Severna Park high schools, junior high and high school.
Did they know my parents?
I don't believe so. I think Karen, my sister, I think she knew maybe Karen Bickley. There's somebody that
Oh,
she
okay.
had some knowledge of, but Severna Park High School was humongous.
Yeah, I know, but
like,
you never know.
you know. And then I moved back from Kentucky. I got a partial scholarship to Kentucky for Murray State University for music, and so I went there, and then came back after graduation. I will tell you, I don't know why I came back here. My mother said the same thing. Why did you decide to come back here? Why didn't you stay out there? I got job offers out there. I don't know. I have to say that was God. I came back here and went to work for the Maryland Gazette newspaper, and David Houston was my boss.
No kidding.
And I was at work the day he came back from having gotten the Holy Ghost and being baptized, and him telling me all about it. And I remember thinking, big whoop, I got baptized when I was 10. Like, I don't really know what's
Right,
important about
right.
this. And he spent a lot of time trying to convince me that I needed God, and I spent a lot of time trying to convince him to leave me alone.
So this is before you met.
This is before I met George.
Oh, so let's talk about that then. So you were living in Severna Park with your parents?
For a little while, and then I had an apartment.
Okay, and then how come you didn't get a job in music?
I don't know exactly. When I got the jobs that I got in the Midwest there, I got offered a couple jobs like in, I think, Arkansas, Missouri, back in there. It wasn't what I wanted to do at that moment in time. It was like, I remember saying to one person, like, well, where's the apartment complexes? And they said, oh, we don't have those, but you'll get a room in the house of somebody. You'll rent a room.
Oh.
And what denomination are you? Where are you going to be the choir director? And I just, as a fresh 21-year-old, having been living a little bit of a wild life, I'm like, I don't feel this is for me. And so I came back mostly just to kind of get my head together and figure out what I wanted to do. And I ended up getting this job and kind of liked it and decided I'm just going to do this for now.
So what were you doing at the Maryland
I
Gazette
was
then?
what they called a district sales manager. I was responsible for like 50 newspaper carriers.
Wow, that's awesome. And the reason I'm asking that is because it's interesting that you go to college for what, 6 years?
4 years.
4 years. And for a music degree, and then you wind up coming back here and working for a newspaper, and that's actually where you are introduced to what we do.
Yeah,
what we have.
so it had to have been God.
Exactly.
Right? It had to have been God.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other thing is that my degree would have been in K through 12 vocal and instrumental music, which is all great. But I liked choir. I liked directing choir. I liked being a part of a choir. I liked being part of a musical ensemble. I was in 8 of them my senior year in college. I directed the university choir for one concert. That is what I liked to do. That's what I loved to do. And so this being the sole music teacher in the county to teach band, orchestra, elementary,
That's
did not
intimidating.
feel like me.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I moved here. I was a choir director up in Reisterstown for a while. And then I got a job at Fort Meade Main Post Chapel, and I was a choir director there.
So you were doing that and working at the Gazette?
Mhm, yeah.
So Dave Houston was your boss?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And can you tell us about how that whole thing happened with, I guess him witnessing to you and so
Yeah,
forth?
just like I said, that very first day when I guess it was a Monday, he was telling me all about church and having gotten the Holy Ghost and being baptized. And it didn't mean a whole lot to me. And he was on fire. And I was who he was trying to get to. I don't know if he wanted me to be his first convert or what, but we went round and round, and I won't embarrass him by telling him some of the things that we said. He's pastors now.
Well, he's
somewhere.
actually a target for me, so we might get him in
You
here.
might
at
be able
some
to get him
point.
in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoyed working for him. I absolutely did. But yeah, it was, we back and forth. I finally went to church with him. I will tell you, when I went to church, they were at the warehouse
In Severna Park.
in Severna Park, and I was following him. I wanted to be able to leave.
Right.
I was following him. It was nighttime service, and he turned right. And I can specifically remember just being like having to force myself to turn the wheel. I feel like in retrospect, it probably was a spiritual thing, but my brain was going, you don't have to turn there. You could just keep going and you could go to work the next day. And I just, in my brain, it felt like this effort to turn the wheel. But because I was raised doing the right thing most of the time, I knew I needed to go or it was going to be really awkward the next time I went to work. But I can remember the difficulty in making myself make that turn. So I went to church that night.
So in going, were you just like trying to get him off your back?
Yes,
All right.
completely. That's completely it.
Okay.
And I went and was really anxious when it was finally time to leave and left.
So anything about that first service that struck you or?
I am pretty perceptive. So I saw things that most people probably wouldn't see. Like the choir was singing that night and they were all in white and black. And I thought, wow, if you go to church here, you have to wear white and black. Those kinds of things. I had, and I know who some of these people are. I had the most delightful older lady. One of those ladies that is so wrinkly that you just like, they are old. Do you know what I mean? And she sat there and she took my hands and she told me about, she said, I know it's really hard to make a decision for God today, and I would this is what she said to me, I'd just as soon be partying with my friends at the Wagon Wheel, which was a restaurant down.
It's the current Rite. Well,
it's something else
It used
now.
to be a Rite Aid, but now it's nothing.
I don't even know what's there.
My uncle used to work there, actually.
And me thinking to myself, you want to be... You look like you can't walk out of here by yourself. And I just hope Jesus doesn't come while you're making your decision. It was just...
Oh, man.
It was one of those nights. It was one of those nights. And I left.
So you were eager to get out.
Oh, yes. Very
Okay.
eager to get out. It plays into our story later. It really does. But that was... And then I worked for him for, I guess it was probably 12, maybe like 15, 16 months. And I came back from vacation and George Dulin was working there.
Oh, okay.
And so that's how I met him.
Okay. So, you can just carry on with this.
So
we're in it now.
Yeah, Dave was our boss and George. So that would have been like in August, I think. And George's birthday was in September. And we were all like those early 20-somethings, having a good time, doing this job. And we'd get together on Friday nights or whatever, go to somebody's house, whatever. And so we all decided we were going to have a birthday party for George.
Okay.
At my house. He never came. He didn't show up.
Nice.
He thought we were kidding. We had a cake. There was a whole group of us. We had the whole thing. And on Monday morning, it's like, dude, you didn't come to the party. And he's like, there was really a party? There was really a party and you missed it. It was great. And we just became friends at work. And eventually one day he walked up to me and he said, I think I had your number, but I lost it. And I said, okay. So I gave it to him thinking, we've got a staff list right here, dude. Like, you don't just look at that. And he called me and asked me if I wanted to go out. And I thought, yeah, I like him. He's fine. We'll go out. And he stood me up.
Really? Again?
Again, he ran out of gas. And there had been a robbery. There had been a robbery at the Highs there at Waterford Road.
No kidding.
Yeah. And he was walking to get gas and the police stopped him. It was just like a whole thing.
Man.
It just could not have been, it was craziness. And eventually we started going out. And
So you forgave him.
yeah, I thought to myself, it all sounded reasonable.
Right.
What are you going to do?
That's bizarre, man.
And so we dated for a while. I eventually left the Gazette newspapers and he continued to work there and do well. And We got married we got married in April of 84. Dave Houston was our best man.
Nice.
Angie and Alex and Andrea were all part of our wedding. I've known them since they were not teens,
Wow.
pretty much.
And up to this point, you've only been to Antioch one time.
One time. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, Dave, we're not doing that again.
Okay. So has George been?
No.
Okay.
I told him he should not go.
Okay. So you warned him.
I told him those people are crazy. You
Nice.
don't want to go there.
So, so you're married now. So how does that?
So sometime around then, and please remember, this is 40-something years ago. Things are
Yeah,
fuzzy.
we're digging deep.
Yeah, things are fuzzy. But at some point in there, he started to have some strange physical symptoms. And most of them we brushed off. He played football with the church, the touch football league that they had that
Oh, really?
about half killed most of the people that were
Yeah.
playing. Yeah. He got thrown out of the games most of the time. It was hysterical. But anyway, sometimes after the games, he just wouldn't be quite right. And I know that he played racquetball with a friend and one time just really couldn't get up. And then eventually that passed. And at some point in there, whatever happened, they had him taken by ambulance, I think from the Y down here to the hospital. And I believe it was North Arundel. I'm actually confident it was. And he was there for a little while, and they finally decided he was diagnosed with having multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
And the doctor that diagnosed him, his wife had multiple sclerosis. So we were pretty confident in the diagnosis. As I just said, this has been 40-something years ago. Please understand that treatment for this disease has come 40-something years into the future.
Right. Can
So-
you tell us a little bit about the disease and
It-
the treatment?
Yeah,
which you were
it
going?
is. It's a disease of the nerves, and if you think about like a wire and that plastic covering around wires, it is that plastic covering disintegrating or peeling off the nerves, which causes the nerves, like it would a wire, to short circuit.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what was happening.
Which means you lose movement.
You
and
lose
things like
movement or
that.
all sorts of different
Is there
things.
pain associated with it?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't remember him being in pain, but that doesn't mean that somebody that has it isn't in pain.
Right.
I don't know. And
It's got to be scary. It's got to be helpful,
absolutely.
mental.
And at the time, there was really nothing in the way of treatment. They gave him, I don't remember, Valium or something. And he was on a couple of medicines. I don't remember what they were. They didn't stop anything. They just kind of tried to control it a little bit. But he was having a lot of what were called attacks, and starting to become a problem for him to work. He was still working. Actually, working for Capital Gazette newspapers, they liked him a lot. He was a good employee and won, some contests and stuff. And they sent him to Hopkins, to one of the leading authorities on MS in the country,
Wow.
for an examination. And the guy confirmed that, yes, that's exactly what George had. And we were just doing our best to deal with it. Like just, young married couple, he'd pass out or, not be able to move. And we were just kind of dealing with it. And one particular,
How long did these attacks last?
it depended. Sometimes they were very short, sometimes 24 hours.
Wow.
One particular day that sticks out in my mind, it had snowed a lot and it was very cold, and neither of our cars would start for us to go to work. And I think George was feeling some angst about not being able to work. Like he was afraid if he kept not being able to go to work that he wouldn't have a job.
Right.
And so he was going to go out and work on the cars, which no big deal. I decided I was going to do the wifely thing and make hot chocolate and take it to him. And I got dressed and I made hot chocolate and I opened the front door and he's collapsed in front of the door.
Oh, no.
Like he couldn't make it to the door.
Man.
And so I had to call 911 to help me get him in the house. And they did. They came, they got him in the house, they got him in bed. And I was a little frustrated because I thought, why are they putting him, why aren't they just taking him to the hospital?
Right.
Like, you know what? Come on, guys. And I must have said that because the one paramedic said, Mrs. Dulin, this is your life now.
Oh, wow, man.
He said, you're going to have to figure out how to deal with this and handle this on a daily basis.
That's rough.
It was rough. And they left, and I sat on the couch and I would say for the first time probably poured my heart out to God.
Oh.
and just said, like, I don't know what we're supposed to do here. Like, I don't know how to navigate this. I don't know how to keep my job and care for him. He's not going to be able to keep his job. I'm not lying to you when I say, and then the pipes burst. Literally in the
Like
house.
they actually burst?
Actually
Oh
burst.
my gosh, man.
They actually burst. I could not get hold of the landlord. It was just horrible. And the next thing you know, George is standing up in the living room going, what's going on? And I said, the pipes burst. And he said, okay. And he went down into the basement, which was one of those horrid basements with the rickety stairs. And I'm like, no, like, be careful. And turned the water off. It was like, what is happening here?
That's wild,
Yeah.
man.
At one of the times when George is in the hospital, and again, time frames, I'm not exactly sure.
Sure.
I would say probably early January of 85, maybe. He said he woke up and in the hospital and that Dave was sitting there praying. And he said, I don't know how long he'd been there or whatever. And Dave could probably answer some of this.
Right.
But he said, Dave said to him, do you believe that God can heal you? And George said, yeah, I believe he could.
So he had an awareness and a belief in God as well then.
I think he was raised less in church than I was. He had attended the post chapel with me. We got married there, that kind of stuff, but we weren't practicing anything.
Right.
But, I mean, that's a reasonable thing. You ask somebody, you think God can heal you? You say,
Yeah,
I guess he
sure.
could. Sure, he's God. I guess he could.
At least establish that
Yeah,
belief.
sure. And then Dave said, do you believe that he will?
That's the
difference.
question.
And George said to him, I don't know. I don't know. And I believe that was the turning point for George. At some point during that time, we were invited to church by Dave. I said we were not going. And George looked at me lucid. I have to tell you, like, even like with the sickness that ended up taking him 20 years ago, there are these moments where the fog lifts. And for George, that moment, the fog lifted. And he looked at me as clearly as he had been able to look at me in a long time. Like, you could tell he was there.
So in this battle with MS, he was in a constant state of being in and out?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm, yeah. There were times but he was so lucid. He looked at me and he said, I'm going with or without you.
Wow.
And I thought, well, then I'm going to go to protect you from the crazy people.
Because he hadn't been
He'd
yet,
never been.
right? Okay.
And I'm like, literally, I'm going to protect you from these people
Wow,
because
man.
you're not right. And they're going, I don't believe that now, but in my brain, they're not right. They're going to take advantage of you and something's going to happen and this is going to be a problem. Right? That's how I felt. So we did. We went. And I don't remember what service it was or anything. We went a couple of times. I was still at the post chapel. We were going there on Sunday mornings. I think we went to like a Thursday night, or I don't know if we went on Sunday nights then. I don't really know. And at some point, well, I know what date. It was January 31st of 1985. We went to an evening service.
Now, this is the service where he looked at you and said, I'm going.
No, this was a couple services
so you
before.
had started to go a little bit.
We had gone a couple times. I wasn't still sure about this.
Were you warming up to it then?
I guess.
Or maybe he was into it.
Maybe. I think I was more him than it was me.
Okay.
And we went to this service. I had to have been warming up to it at some level.
Yeah.
I had to have been.
Yeah,
but
at least getting to know people.
Well, we knew people from football.
Right.
And we knew Dave and Cyril Roberge. George had worked with him. And it was Lee Stone King was preaching. And at the end of the service, actually, my sister and her husband were with us. Or they weren't married yet. And I went up, got the Holy Ghost.
So how did that happen?
I don't know.
Were you just sitting there and you're like, all right, I'm doing it?
Yeah, pretty much. It was like, yeah, this is the thing. This is what I need to do. And George didn't go. And I came back, and the next thing, I'm not sure if I call him Bishop. He used to be pastor, but I'm not sure if Bishop would remember it this way. But if Bishop has ever forced anyone into the altar, it was George Dulin. Okay. Because he came back there and was talking to him and basically finally, in my brain, pulled him up front. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it happened, but that's how my brain remembers it. And I went up with him And Brother Stone King and Bishop were praying for George, and I was told to put my hand on his back. And so the three of us, who else was around, I don't know.
And this is like the day you got the Holy Ghost.
Yes, right as I got the Holy Ghost. And I don't know where my sister and her future husband were. But anyway, and the next thing you know, George is speaking in tongues, and he's got the Holy Ghost. And when he's done, he turns and looks at Bishop and says, "I've been healed."
Wow.
And Bishop says, "Of what?" And George said, "Multiple sclerosis." Bishop's like, "Okay."
Now, did Bishop Wright know you guys?
He knew us from football.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not 100%. This is not my story, but my understanding is he looked at Dave Houston one time and said, "I'm not sure that man's ever going to make it." Now, Bishop, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. That's what I was told. And so Bishop and George talked, and George said, like, "What do I do now? Like, what do I do? Do I stop my medicines? What do I do?" And Bishop told him not to stop his medicines. He said, "God will tell you when it's time. And you just wait for him to talk to you about it." And I don't remember the period of time. I don't. It was not it wasn't months. But at some point, George said, "I'm done. I'm not going to take this medication anymore."
Wow. How soon did you guys get baptized?
Oh, that night.
Oh, okay.
That night. And Ron Richards baptized us.
Oh, wow.
And so the newspaper wasn't really thrilled with all of this. And so they sent George back up to see the doctor at Hopkins.
So he was telling everybody.
Oh,
that he
yeah.
was okay.
Oh, yes. And so we went back up to Hopkins to see the doctor again. And the doctor examined him and basically said, "You don't have MS."
No kidding.
And George said, "Okay, I know that. What did I have?" And the guy said, "I was kind of hoping you wouldn't ask me that." He said, "Because I believe you had MS. And there is something," and I don't understand this. "There is something I can see in the back of your eye that lets me know it was there. But it's not there. And please don't ask me to find them, but somewhere in the abyss of all of the papers in my life, I have letters from both doctors saying that he does not have MS.
Wow. So it's certified.
It's certified.
Miracle.
Absolutely.
That is amazing.
Absolutely. One of the things that was happening during that time was, of course, we wanted to have a baby. And they told me, they said we wouldn't, that we couldn't. I don't understand that part of it. Like, is it because of the MS? Is it because of the medications? Was he not going to? I don't know why. But my doctor flat out said, "You need to understand that you will not have a child with this man." And I'm like, okay. And my doctor was in Annapolis. I was driving by the church, and I came in and I sat in the corner of the Orange Sanctuary by the drums. And I was sitting there in a chair praying, just devastated, because I wanted to be a wife and a mom. That's what I wanted. That had been my whole life. And
That's all right.
anyway, that's what I'd ever wanted to be. And the Lord spoke to me as clearly as he's ever spoken to me and said, "Do you think I'd heal part of him and not all of him? You'll have a child when it's my time."
Whew, man, I can feel that, man.
And so I have two.
That is amazing. And just in case you're not aware, her firstborn was Randy Dulin, I think episode
13
or 14. So
Yeah.
we've already heard
Mhm.
from him.
I'll also tell you that the Lord spoke to George and I and told us flat out that it would be a boy.
Wow.
And it was.
And how soon after that?
So I had Randy in 87.
So this
I'm
was
not probably
maybe-
85,
maybe
86,
two-
early
one-
86.
2 years or so.
Yeah, it wasn't right away that I got pregnant, but yeah.
That is amazing, man.
And then a couple of years later, my mom got sick. And it took us a little bit of time to figure out what was going on, but my mom had leukemia, and Randy was about 2.5. And during that time, I found out I was pregnant with Kathy. And it was a rough time. It was a rough time for our family. We were back and forth to Pennsylvania every weekend my parents ran a bed and breakfast up there, trying to help keep the bed and breakfast open while Mom was undergoing treatments. And it was a lot. And when she passed in December of 89, and I was pregnant, we were at a small group. I don't know if your mom was there or not.
In 89?
Mhm.
Probably. I mean, I
But we
think
were at the
that's
Sharers.
yeah, I think that's how our families
Oh,
connected.
that is why, because we split off from the
Right,
Sharers.
and we
Yes,
went
that's
with you
exactly right.
guys.
And somebody was, I think it might have been Dane Scherer that was praying for me. And the Lord spoke to me as clear as a bell and said, I will give you a girl, and she will be the beauty for ashes and the oil of joy for your mourning.
Man, that's awesome.
And we didn't tell anybody. And I have Kathy. And if you know my daughter, she has been that
Absolutely.
every day. Still is.
Absolutely. And you guys are really close.
We are very close.
That's awesome.
We're very close. So, yeah, that's that part of the story.
That is amazing, man. So, moving forward, we covered a lot of these questions already. That's good. I guess you went through some ups and downs through the 90s, and then I remember my father passed away in 2000. I was gone. I mean, I don't know a whole, you took me to school in the early 90s, and then I joined the Air Force,
Right.
and I was gone for 4 years, and I came home right after my father passed away. And it wasn't that long after that Brother Dulin got sick again, it seems.
He got sick in 03.
Okay, yeah, so about
Yeah.
2 years later.
So,
I mean, if there's anything in that time span that you want to cover.
that was just lifetime.
Right.
That was just, I worked here at the school teaching for 13 years. George had a business. Eventually we closed that down, and he was working for Tony Lewis. We had small group at our house with your family
Yeah.
and other families. And then sometime in there, I don't know exactly when, and we had youth care group for a while. I don't know if you were in our youth care group.
No, because I
don't
went
think
to
so.
Sister Miles.
Yeah,
At the time,
Yeah.
Sister Miles.
we had youth care group for a while. And then somewhere in the early 2000s, they started these home churches. And so George and I were pastoring a little home church, and a key word here is little. It was the kids and us, and there was another couple from outside, a couple and a young man that we would on Sunday mornings have church in our house.
Oh, okay.
And it was great. It was small. We were doing our best. But somewhere in there, George had developed what we would have called a canker sore. And everybody's had a canker sore, and it just kills you and it hurts,
Yeah.
whatever. But George's wasn't going away. And so finally, I had left working at the church, mostly because we needed health insurance. And health insurance was different 20-some years ago. And so I got a job and got health insurance. And
Was that difficult moving from working at the church to getting a regular job?
it was good timing for us. Randy had started to drive. So it wasn't, the timing was good for us. And the building had fallen.
Oh, okay.
And so that was a whole new change. And we had kind of been working towards that, knowing that at some point, none of the jobs that George had insurance, and that we were getting older, and you're going to need it. Right.
Yeah. The reason I ask that question is because, just to be transparent on myself, I worked at Antioch Christian School for a school year. And when I worked there, I felt like I had found my life's purpose. And so at the end of the school year, they weren't able to keep me on just because of financial situations. And so making that transition back into a secular workforce was one of the most difficult times in my life. So I'm just wondering
I can absolutely understand that. I absolutely can, because after 13 years, well, most of that I was a volunteer, and we did that in exchange for tuition. It's how a lot of us, our
Right.
children, were able to go. And then that last year, they were paying us a small stipend, which was great.
Yeah,
no
yeah.
complaints about that. That was a blessing, absolute blessing. But it just felt time.
Okay, that's good.
And it took a little while to find. I started my job. I started that job like sometime in August. The story, I had applied for a job at the hospital that I really wanted, and they did not hire me. And I was a little disappointed. So I took this other job. I got the insurance, and George went to the doctor to have this place on his tongue looked at, because at that point it had been here for quite some time.
Right.
And he went in and they decided that he needed to see an oral surgeon to have this place removed off of his tongue. Honestly, by that point, I had gotten a call back from the hospital that said, we'd actually like you to have this job.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. So I quit the other job and went to work at the hospital. And I started on Monday, and he was having this place. He had the place removed maybe the week before. I'm not exactly sure the timing. And actually, Randy went with him because I was starting my job.
Wow.
And so he had that removed. They called us and asked us to come to the office. And I actually had to ask if I could leave work. I'd been there all of, 5 or 6 days.
Right.
And we went, and they told us that it was cancer.
Wow. No kidding.
And that they had not gotten clean margins.
What's a clean margin?
A clean margin means that whatever they've taken out, that there's nothing on the outer edges that are cancer, that's all healthy, normal tissue. And they could not say that. They were confident they had left cancer behind. Man. So come to find out, that was in the time frame of pre-existing conditions. And at that time, the other insurance, that company was too small to have Cobra to cover what the surgeries would be.
Oh,
and
no.
I didn't and my current job, he needed to wait a year before he could have any treatment for that, because it was pre-existing. So we prayed about it. We saw all the doctors. We went through all the things, trying to decide what to do. And George just decided that he wasn't going to do it, that we could not afford it, that he was going to trust God, and that whatever happened, happened, but that he was not going to put us into hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt for the possibility that there could still be cancer there. Man. So that was hard.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask, what was your mental state at this point?
I trusted that he'd heard from God. That's really not a cop-out. I mean, we had think about what God did for us.
Yeah.
And and I just,
it's valid.
if that's what you believe, I have to trust that you've heard from God for yourself. That's
right.
And that's how we lived the next year.
Wow.
And then at some point after my insurance came into effect, that he could have gotten treatment, he started to have a lot of pain in his tongue. And we went to a couple of doctors. They did a biopsy, didn't really find anything. And I remember the doctor saying that he had called his mentor. And those of you that don't know, I work for the chief of surgery at the local hospital and have now for 23 years. And they do that. They go back to the person that trained them and say, this case is throwing me for a little bit of a loop. What do you think?
Yeah, I have experience with that as well, because most people know we have a cardiac issue in the family, and my kid's pediatrician, particularly with Ava, has often had to talk to her mentor about some of the issues.
And so he talked to his mentor, and the guy came back and said, I'm telling you, you're not done looking. There's something there. You've got to go back in. So they actually had us see ear, nose, and throat surgeon at University of Maryland, and they went in to do another biopsy and found the cancer. And so 2 weeks after that, I think it was about 2 weeks after that, they did what is called a partial glossectomy, and that is where they removed about half of George's tongue. And I find this fascinating. You non-medical people might be grossed out now, but they used a flap of skin from his forearm. It's called a radial flap, and the arteries and veins in that area are the exact same size and line up with the arteries and veins in your tongue.
Wow.
Which is fascinating to me,
really.
that God would do that. And so they replaced that part of George's tongue with part of his arm.
That is wild, man.
It went okay, but there were a lot of complications. He ended up with MRSA, and he was in the hospital in a medically induced coma for, I think it was about 4 weeks. 4 or 5 weeks. And then once everything was stable, then we could bring him home. He was breathing. He had a trach and was breathing through his trach. He was able to start talking, but through his trach. He wasn't taking anything by mouth.
How deep is this into the initial diagnosis?
About a year and a couple of months.
Okay.
And so this would have been in the spring of 05.
Okay.
So we had started the process again in the fall of 04. This would be like February of 05 is when he had the 2 surgeries. And I think Randy said in his piece that he lost a tremendous amount of weight. He was extremely weak. You know, I still think about like we going back and forth to the hospital, like during that time, the 295 was under construction. Like it was horrible. I was driving, somebody had given us a pickup truck that was a beautiful little truck. George had always teased this person and said, one of these days that's going to be my truck. And they ended up giving it to us. And it was a stick shift, which I did grow up learning to drive, but they released him from the hospital at 5:00 on a Friday.
Oh, Lord.
In that little pickup truck with all just
a stick shift.
Yeah,
too.
it was just lovely. It was lovely.
Golly. In case you don't know, University of Maryland Hospital is right downtown Baltimore.
Right downtown Baltimore.
Wow.
So we made it home. Randy got him in the house. He was he had a trach. We had the suction machine, all those kinds of things. He was being fed through a peg in his stomach, directly into his stomach with kind of like Ensure kind of stuff. And things were,
Was this going to be his life? Like,
No.
or were they expecting him to?
This was just part of the healing.
Recovery.
They were going to, at some point, the trach would be removed and the peg would be removed and he'd start eating. But the problem was that George just never got well. Like he was constantly having fevers and they never could really completely figure out where they were coming from. And he was in and out of the hospital a ridiculous amount, absolutely ridiculous amount. And at some point, it was on my birthday. It was on my birthday in August. We were coming to church. He'd been in and out of church a little bit. We'd been able to start coming. And we got to church and he had a fever. He was shivering. It was not good. Got him back to the car and we went to the hospital. And they did all the things. We were in the process of getting a new primary care doctor, not because there was anything wrong with the one we had, but we wanted somebody that was right there, that was hooked into the system. And so he came to see us and finally they said, okay, we're going to do these different tests. And they went to do, you would probably know what a TEE is, but it's instead of it being a cardiac echo from the front of your heart, they go down through your nose and esophagus and look at the back of your heart.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they were going to do that and they attempted to do it. And because of all the scarring, they couldn't do it. And so they wanted him to have that done. And they felt like they would need to use pediatric scopes. And so that's when they transferred him to university. And it was fast and hard to get him up there.
Why were they thinking
because they were
look at his
starting to
heart?
wonder if it was his heart that was where the infection was.
Oh,
Because they could not find anything.
wow.
And so we got him up there and they did the TEE and they found that his heart was not even all there.
No kidding.
And so we were introduced to the surgeon and they told us that he would be having open heart surgery. I don't remember if it was the next day or the day after.
Man.
And it was rough. It was
Yeah.
hard. I had Randy had just turned 18. Kathy had just turned 15.
And you guys are thinking you're more or less out of the woods at this point.
We thought he was supposed to have been able to go back to work in September. And this was now September.
Golly.
And it was rough. We, your mom and Ron came and sat with us. They had not gotten married yet, but at the hospital, Ron had told us he was going to ask her. Kevin's mom is one of my very best friends. But he had told us, he said, I'm asking her. I can remember sitting at the hospital and him telling us all about it.
I can imagine.
And just different things. It was funny. But they came and sat with us that day. But the night before, and I know Randy has told this, but the night before, there were various people in and out of his room. And Randy was we were all struggling. Like, it wasn't just Randy that was struggling. If I think about it, if I tell this story and Randy tells this story and Kathy tells this story, and after Randy's testimony, my sister said, we all remember things differently about that
Yeah,
night because we were all in
absolutely.
a different place.
Yeah.
This was my husband. It was a man to my sister that was like a brother to her.
Right.
It was Randy's dad. It's everybody's
Yeah.
perception of it is different.
An episode. Well, I did a special episode in honor of my father's
you did.
passing, and I had my two sisters and my mom there, and because I knew we all had a different perspective on what happened, so it absolutely.
And this is a complete aside. I'll get back to this in a second, but I so specifically remember George saying, "I have to talk to Leanne because she's got to know about this insurance policy if she doesn't know."
Oh my gosh,
He
that was
said,
amazing.
I know.
Man.
He said, "I've got to talk to her. I don't want to bother her right now, but I've got to talk to her." And I think he actually called Steve.
Wow.
And to make sure she knew that everything was going to be okay.
In case you didn't hear whatever episode Randy was on, George Dolan, who is the one we're talking about, the year before my father passed away, I was home on leave, and George Dolan sold my father a life insurance policy, and I was there and signed the paper as a witness, and then my father passed away almost a year exactly after that. So it was, I mean, it was God, 100%.
Absolutely.
Man, it was amazing.
So that night, they had told us, honestly, they didn't give him high hopes for making it.
Wow.
And it was difficult. It's not what you wanted to hear. And I can close my eyes and hear George say, "God has not been unkind to me."
That is amazing.
And I will tell you, it's on his tombstone.
Nice.
I want anybody that ever walks by that grave to know that God was not unkind to that man. And I'll also tell you that God has not been unkind to his family.
Right.
But that night, we left and went home and came back early the next morning. And for the first time when I walked in that hospital room, George looked gray. Like you could tell that he was not in good health. Like it was the first time you really looked at him and went, "Oh, that coloring is not right." And they took him in for surgery. They anticipated it being, 4 or 5 hours. And they started coming out and talking to us somewhere around hour 6, 7, 8. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
It was 12 hours. They
That's
told us
torture.
that they did not think he was going to make it off the table. They did bring him up to the CTICU at University. He was still open with that saran wrap looking stuff over the top of his heart. It was rough. It was really rough. Basically, his heart had pretty much been eaten up by MRSA. The staph infection had pretty much eaten his heart, and they had done everything they could to rebuild it. We spent a lot of time at the hospital. I will tell you that I work for incredible people, and the surgeon that did his surgery, I still see him. He actually comes to our office periodically to see patients. And the chief of surgery that I work for stayed at the hospital that night. And the cardiac surgery and the doctor that I work for stood outside that CTICU room against the wall for hours.
Wow.
Monitoring my husband and monitoring our family.
God bless
And
those
every so
guys.
often, Dr. Benjamin would walk up to me and say, "Stop looking at the monitors, Leanne. Stop."
You
Like,
can't,
okay,
you can't
okay,
stop.
I'll
though.
stop. And then right back to the monitors.
Is that the
Um,
monitor where they tell you what stage
Yes.
of surgery they're in?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
This is the
okay.
monitor on him, all of the EKGs and
Oh,
all
so
those.
you were in the room with them?
When they brought him to the CTICU, they let us in the room.
Oh,
Yeah, so we were in the room from that point forward. We stayed at the hospital. I think the kids stayed the first night, and I think that my sister took them home the second night. I stayed for several days. They came back, please don't, but I stayed. And then finally, I knew I needed to go home. And I didn't want to leave him alone.
yeah, sure.
And I'm going to forget people. Please know that. But Sean Whaley, Steve Rhodes, and I believe Seth was with him, Glenn Middleton. I feel like it was Mike Yu. And if there were more, I don't know. But they took 2-hour shifts that night and
Wow.
came and stayed at the hospital in 2-hour shifts so that he wasn't alone.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they did have a DNR on him.
I don't know what it is.
Do not resuscitate.
Oh, okay.
They had told me that there was no resuscitating him if he went. And then that second night,
I would assume because the heart was.
just so Yeah. But then at some point, the doctor that I work for, Dr. Benjamin, said, you need to ask them if it's okay to take that DNR off now. And so I did, and they said yes. So they took it off, and then he coded.
Wow.
And they were able to resuscitate him. They took him back to the OR and closed everything up. And we spent 6 weeks there.
No kidding.
And he started to kind of like start to do better. He, like I can remember one specific time they had him up in a chair and he was trying to let us know that we needed to look at the clock because Randy needed to leave to go to work. Like I can remember. So he was, a little bit coherent there. But the truth is, I guess when they do these and they have them on bypass and all that, the blood that they were taking out and recirculating was full of MRSA.
Man,
Right, because
that is
that's
wild,
right,
man.
and so that just kind of continued to grow in his body, and it just with every passing day it got worse.
The MRSA was sort of an epidemic at that time, if I remember.
It was,
Yeah.
and so over the course of time, he just didn't make it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. We knew he was going. We were all there.
In the room?
In the room. Mm-hmm. All of us were there. My sister, my brother-in-law at the time, me, Randy and Kathy, Steve Rhodes was with us. And Randy was right. I sang him out, singing What a Day That'll Be. When my
And
Jesus
I got to
shall
tell you,
see.
Sister Dulin, nobody sings that song like you, man.
Oh, no, Mother Right.
You get me every time, man.
But I sang him out.
You're right. Mother Right might have
Mother
you
Right's
beat, but
got
you
me. I'm
guys are
telling you, she
close to
does.
equal.
Thank you. That is a compliment. But yeah, I sang to him a lot during that time. We had talked about it up front because we knew he wasn't going to be able to talk. And we had talked about it. And there were some things that he just, I would just sing to him because it gave him peace.
And for you that don't know, you guys sang together.
We did all of our married life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always enjoyed that.
Yeah. So he passed. And it was hard. Still is sometimes. I mean, it's been 20 years. Does time heal all wounds? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But I also know that you learn to live and do and,
the space never goes away.
No.
Though.
No.
And maybe it's not supposed to.
Maybe it's not supposed to. I mean, I look at Randy and I look at Nate and Sean. Sean looks a little bit more like his mom, but it's like if I showed you a picture of George's dad, I see these men even into Nathaniel, and you can't get away from that. And there's things that Randy does that I'll think, oh, that's your dad.
Yeah.
Or there's things Kathy does that I think, that's your dad.
Yeah.
It's not ever gonna.
So I want to ask you a question, and if you don't want to answer it, we can cut this out because it's kind of a heavy question. But, because of the fact that Brother Dulin had been healed of MS, certifiably healed, and then he dies
20.
of this 20 years later, did that feel like failure to you?
Not at all.
Can you explain that?
You just want me to cry? Is that what you want?
Well, I mean, it has rained in here before. I'm not trying to get that out, but I think it's an important question if you're able to answer it.
I believe that God is fair, that he is just, that he is sovereign, and that while I don't know what's best for me, he does. I will never be able to explain to you why George Dulin needed to die. I'll never be able to explain to you why I have a special kid like Nate in my life. I can't ever explain those things to you, but I know that he knows the way I take, and I know that his plan and purpose for our lives is the most important thing, and that my job is to trust. I would have preferred that George live. I remember one specific time, I had an 18-year-old boy. Like, I wanted his dad.
Yeah.
I remember praying and saying, Lord, Randy needs his father. And God saying, if he needed his father would be here. Who he needs is me. Sorry.
You get me, Sister Dulin.
What are you supposed to do with that, Kevin? Like, I have to trust. I have to trust that he is going to do what's best for all of us. And I don't know why I'm okay with that, but I'm okay with that. I don't always like it. You know, somebody said something the other day and I thought, I'm kind of tired of making all the decisions for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to be able to go, hey, George, do you think it's okay if I buy a new refrigerator? Like, right? But that's on me. It's on me and Jesus. He has taken such remarkable care of my family since the day that since before George passed away. I am pretty confident. I don't want to say a falsehood. I am pretty confident that since the day that George went in the hospital in 2005, I've never paid rent or a mortgage.
That's amazing.
I have a mortgage-free home.
Wow.
I can't explain that to you. Family, yes. Church, yes. George didn't have life insurance. I'm so glad your dad did.
Me too.
But George did not, because he'd had multiple sclerosis.
Oh, right.
And I had no money to bury him. But they raised the funds to bury him and to help with my kids. I came across that folder the other day. I'm shocked at the people that gave money to bury my husband, not the least of which was all the doctors that I worked for.
Wow.
I laugh sometimes about this, but people fed us that whole year. That was the year rotisserie chickens came out. God love people and rotisserie chickens. We came to a point where my kids were like, could we tell them to not bring a rotisserie chicken? I had so many rotisserie chickens in my freezer that Randy used to take one out every morning and take it to work at the bowling alley, and it would be thawed by the time it was dinner time, and he would sit there at the bowling alley and eat a chicken.
Oh my God.
I thought I was doing great keeping up on thank you notes during that time until we moved. We had to move in May when George was in and out of the hospital that whole time. And 42 people came to help us move. 42.
Wow.
The reason I know it was 42 is because somebody told me, do you know there's 42 people here? No.
That's amazing,
I looked up at
man.
one point, Kevin, and my piano was being carried out by 6 guys. 6 guys just have my piano and are carrying. I have a big old piano.
No kidding.
Just carrying it out. People cared for us. And it's continued. Randy told the story. He did not want to go to college. He was done. He did not want to go to school. And then somebody stepped up and paid for all of his schooling.
Wow.
Somebody stepped up and paid all of his books. When it was Kathy's turn, somebody stepped up and paid all of her tuition. And somebody else stepped up and paid all of her books.
That is amazing.
None of my kids went through school on loans. When Kathy has her master's debt-free.
Not a lot of people can say that these days.
No, you can't say that. At some point, my sister helped us buy a mobile home and then kept us in that for a while. And then when my second stepmother passed, my dad said, you're alone, I'm alone, let's buy a house together. And we did. And so he took care of that. And then when he got married and after she passed and moved to Florida, yeah, then it was my house. Okay, here's the other story. The care that he has taken of us. Randy said, Mom, if this house next door to us ever comes on the market, you should buy it. Our backyards would connect, and we'd be there for you as you get older. You'd be here for us with Nate and now the new baby coming, and if it ever comes up on the market, we think you should buy it. Okay, like whatever, right? And I was getting Zillow emails. And one Saturday I got a Zillow email and I'm like, not even looking at that thing, right? And later that day I thought, I'm going to look at that. And I start looking at it and I'm going through the 52 pictures and I keep thinking, where is this house? And I finally called Randy. I said, where's this house? Because that looks like your camper across the fence.
No kidding.
And he's like, and literally they're going, that's the house, Mom,
Wow.
that's the house. I call Brent and Jen. Can we go look at this house? I have no intention of buying a house, right?
Right.
My bank account is like 0. Like, I have no intention of buying a house. And Brant's like, oh, we're not in town. But we'll be back tomorrow. You want to go see it after church tomorrow? Sure. So we go after church. My sister, Kathy, me, Randy, Michelle. She brings over Nate. We've got Jen and her mom and Brant. Like, we've got a party at this house, right? And we're walking through. And at this point, I have it memorized. And somebody's going, oh, what's this? Oh, that's where the furnace is. Oh, no, that's the hot water heater over there. Like, oh, no, that's the laundry closet. Like, I'm just like, whatever. And we all look through it and we walk out into the backyard looking at Randy and Michelle's house, right? And I say, well, what do I do now? And Brant says, do you want the house? I said, I think I do. He goes, go back in there by yourself. See what the Lord tells you. And I walked in and I thought, Lord, what do you want me to do? And I walked back out and I said, okay, I want to buy the house. What do I do? And literally, this is like 2:00, Kevin. My sister writes me the check for the earnest money. And I tell Linda, don't deposit this till I can get my own. And I write her a check. Don't deposit this till I can get it in the bank. Leaving the driveway, I'm on the phone with Bill Benner. Like, what do I do? Okay, I'm going to send you the stuff. He sends me the stuff. The realtor says, write a letter. See if we can't convince this guy to sell you this house. So we get home. Kathy writes a letter that is like the letter of all time.
Right.
It's no longer legal to do that, by the way.
Okay.
Writes the letter of all time. I can picture myself holding my new grandchild in the, it is like the whole, so by that's like at 2, like by 7, I have loan approval.
Wow.
Like, I've got loan approval. And Joel, my pastor, Joel Wright, comes to the door to drop off a book that we're using for a Bible study. And I said, I did something. And he said, what'd you do? I said, I bought a house. And he said, where? I said, just right here in Glen Burnie, next to Randy and Michelle. Sold my house, moved in there. Randy cut a gate in the fence, and my grandkids live in my backyard.
Amazing. And your house was pretty easy to sell?
Oh, yeah, it sold like within 3 days.
That's amazing,
Yep.
man. Golly.
I'll even go so far as to say what the realtor wanted me to sell it for. I said, that's not what God told me. He told me this, and it was more money, and I got that.
No kidding.
Yeah. And it's Kathy's story to tell, but Kathy now lives across the street in the house she bought.
Wow.
So it's a Dulin family compound, and if anybody wants to live on that street, they're going to have to pass, something with the family first to make sure it's okay for you to move in.
That is amazing. So now, I did want to just touch on this a little bit, and that is, your life, it's almost like when I look at your life, you had this amazing experience coming into your walk with God, with Brother Dulin's healing, and then things kind of settled out for a while. Obviously you had your ups and downs in life. Everybody does, and then the devastation of the fight at the end of Brother Dulin's life. And then it almost seems like that was the beginning of a new era for you,
I
in
agree
a
with
sense,
that.
right?
Yeah.
I did want to just touch on what it's been like being the grandmother of a special needs child. If you could talk about, obviously the physical part of it, but even the spiritual part of it. What if God has given you any revelations through all of that?
I remember when I was, we were having a choir practice for some gather event or something like that for the district, and they were at the hospital. And I remember them calling and saying, Mom, there's something the matter with his brain. And that was devastating. Randy talked about Michelle knowing something was wrong. I think that I knew. I think I didn't want to admit. I think I didn't want to admit. I think that Nathaniel is the most wonderful child, and he's right up there with his brother. He is the sweetest boy. He does not communicate the way you and I do. But I have no doubts that child loves and adores me. He's fun. He can be silly and he can be ornery, and he knows it. He's a teenager, and even with the fact that he functions at whatever low level he functions at, he does things that a teenager would do. He'll be ornery and look at you and knock something off the couch, which may not seem like a big deal to a normal 13, almost 14-year-old. For him, that's a lot.
Right.
He's getting big and strong, and like he can take his yaya out if he's not careful. Like, you know, but things are hard. Like he's never called me yaya. He's never said I love you. His little brother does, and I love it.
Sure.
But I know that Nate feels it, because there's times that he will look at me and you can just read it all in his eyes. They have pictures of MRIs that show all of the irregularities in his brain. They have the documents that show us the chromosomal abnormalities and the things that make him who he is. God can heal him. He can heal him just like he healed George of MS, or he cannot heal him just like he didn't heal George from the tongue cancer. Mm. Like he is sovereign. He can make that choice. I hurt sometimes for my children because they live a really difficult life. It's difficult, and it can be difficult for us. We had both boys for 48 hours. Kathy came over. We kept both boys for 48 hours and gave them a well-deserved break. And they came back looking rested, and I came back looking like exhausted, right? And what happens? 5 hours after they pick him up, Nate has a seizure on the side of the sidewalk around that corner from the house. Wow. Like, that's a hard life to live. Mm-hmm. I hate to say God knew they could handle it, but he's sovereign. Sometimes maybe that sounds like, La La Land or something, but he's in charge.
I mean,
Jesus is in charge.
If you're a Christian, it's your only option.
And this is what he has for our family. And if this is what he has for our family, our job is to take care of that boy and take care of that family the best we can. Kathy and I have been doing date night once a week for probably since Nate was around 3. And most times it's Wednesday night. We take them from dinner time until they come pick them up. And if they need to go shopping, if they need to take a nap, if they want to go out, if they need to clean, I don't care what they do. Because even Randy said it in his piece, the number of special needs families that end up divorced is humongously high.
Yeah.
If you go through the families at Nate's school, there's an awful lot of single moms taking care of these kids. And I just feel like, I don't know why God gave this gift to our family, but Nathaniel's a gift.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
He is a gift. And we are blessed to have him. He's a fantastic kid. I don't know what he understands completely about God, but I have video of him worshiping as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and you'd be hard-pressed to look at that video and not know that kid feels the Spirit of God.
Awesome.
You'd be hard-pressed not to know. I don't know what the future holds for him. I don't know if we'll lose him due to a horrible seizure. I don't know if he's going to outlive all of us. Sean adores his brother, but those are decisions Sean's going to have to make as he gets older. God's been faithful, and he's provided, and he's going to provide for Nate, and he's going to provide for Randy and Michelle and Sean, and he's going to help them as they live their life with Nate, just like we do.
Right. I mean, when I sit here and listen to you, it's just amazing, because looking back at your life, you have so many reasons to ask God questions. And, I mean, I have asked God questions. I can't help it. I'm just like, why, man? Why are you doing this? Why are you allowing this? But to hear the way you have weathered these storms, it's really an inspiration.
One of the things that I learned when George was sick, and Bishop really helped me with this, is to find peace. And when you find it and you lose it, go back to where you found it and start again from there. And he told me, he said, Leanne, when these doctors are saying things to you and you feel your peace leaving, tell them, hang on a second, I'll be right back. And walk out and talk to Jesus and get that peace back before you go back in there. Now, this is a little bit of a funny story, and I say it with all due respect. But one time, Bishop was in George's room. I don't know what the man said, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bishop. Whatever he said, my peace went bye-bye. And I remember saying to Bishop, could you hold on just a second? And I walked out of that hospital room and went to a corner and was like, Lord, I don't know what that's just happened, but something happened and I don't feel as safe as I did. I do everything I can to live at a place of peace. I ask God questions. Of course I did. But I had kids. I had to deal. I remember my stepmother, she had lost her first husband, and she'd said, cry in the shower. And I don't cry in the shower, but I cried in that bed for a long time.
Yeah.
But I didn't cry in front of the kids a whole lot.
Right.
Like, I got up and kept moving. And I want to live at peace. I want to live at peace with God.
And speaking of crying, I feel like working through that grief is a large part of getting that peace. I think, especially as Christians, I think a lot of times we feel like we have to get over it. You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to trust God, so we got to get over this grief. But I've learned through my experiences that you don't get over it. You work through it. You let that grief come, and you let those tears flow.
Absolutely.
Until they're out, and then God replaces it with His Spirit or His peace. That's what I think.
I remember one time, this was long before George was sick, and one of my sisters called me and she said, how are you doing today? And I'm like, fine. And she said, you know what today is? I'm like, December 9th? She's like, uh-huh. I'm like, yeah. She goes, it's the day Mom died. I'm like, oh, yeah. And not that I didn't remember my mom and love my mom, but there comes a point in time when it is not the thing that is forefront in your mind.
Right.
But then, I can remember one time George saying, what's the matter? And I said, I miss my mom. It wasn't Mother's Day. It wasn't her birthday.
It comes from nowhere.
It just out of nowhere. I just missed her. And, we're all older now than my mom was when she died. So there are things that we're experiencing that's like, I wonder what Mom would have thought about this.
Right.
Or George died at 49, folks. I was 46.
Right.
That's, nobody expected. As a female, you expect at some level to outlive your spouse. That is scientifically, statistically, all those things. You don't think it's going to happen when you're 46.
Absolutely not.
I can remember Steve Rhodes went with us to the funeral parlor and everything, or to the cemetery, and them saying, would you like us to put George deeper so that you could be buried on top of him? And I remember looking at Steve like, are you kidding me? Like, what? And him going, you don't need to worry about that. I'm like, I think we'll be just fine. Because those, like, I'm 46 years
so
old.
Far
I
from
don't
your
know.
mind, yeah.
Like, I never thought, wait, what?
Yeah, that's wild.
So it's just, I don't know.
All right. Well, we're going to bring this thing to a close. I've got one last question for you. And we might have already sort of touched on this. If you could give one piece of advice to someone out there who was going through the exact things you have been through, and they felt like they were on the verge of giving up, and you knew if they could just turn to Jesus, how would you tell them to do that? In other words, we always say, just turn to Jesus, just trust God. But what does that really look like? What is one practical thing that person could do tonight to help them get themselves on a better path?
Be honest with God about exactly how you feel. He can handle your anger. He can handle your all of your thoughts and feelings. He can handle all that. You can yell at him. He's not going to be offended at you. You can yell why. You can yell anything that you're feeling or thinking. Why am I alone? Why are you doing this to my family? Why? You can ask him all those questions. and do it at the top of your lungs. Like, what do you think he's going to do? Go, oh, you can't talk to me like that? He wants to hear from you. And then I would say, trust him. I know that sounds hard, but just say, I give up. Bishop talks a lot about casting your cares. It's like taking a ball of paper and throwing it away and not going and getting it. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
But throw it over there. Give it to Jesus. See what the Bible says, taste and see. See what he does. I'm telling you, he will protect you. He will guide you. He will wrap his arms around you. He'll give you peace. He'll give you comfort. He will provide. If I could say anything to the people that are listening to this right now, he will provide whatever it is. If it's financial, if it's physical, if it's emotional, if it's spiritual, he will provide.
Jehovah Jireh.
He's a good God.
Amen.
He's a good God.
I think this is a good place to stop. Sister Dulin, thank you so much for being willing to come on here and share all that. I know it can be a struggle to dig deep sometimes, so I really appreciate your transparency and everything. So thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to add before we close it out?
I think this is a fantastic thing that you're doing, and I'm glad I barreled through and did
And
it.
now you're a part of
And
it,
now
so
I'm a
thank you
part of
very
it.
much. All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
And with that, Sister Dulin has stepped down from the stand, and I thank you again for that excellent testimony. As you know from listening to the testimony, I grew up watching people like the Dulins and my own parents, not to mention many others, navigate this life and all the things it throws at you. I watched them maintain their walks with God through all of it. And I know that a large part of the reason why I can sit here today is because I've been able to draw inspiration from watching them and many others that I've been honored to know, and that hopefully you may hear from in the future on this podcast. So I want to take a moment and express my deepest appreciation for all the first-generation Christians who maybe you were the first one in your family to really give your life to God. You have no idea the legacy you have started if you can learn to walk with him and stay on his path. The road might get rough and you might stumble, but I'm telling you, please keep going. It's worth the fight. And to all the second and third generation Christians out there, don't forget how you got here. And now it's on you to keep this going. And if you haven't started the journey yet, I hope that by listening to this testimony and others like it, you're feeling inspired to take those first steps. When I think of Sister Dulin and my parents and others from that generation that brought us up in this, I'm reminded of a song that we used to sing in church when I was growing up. It's actually one of my favorites. And the words are, "When I first fell in love with Jesus, I gave him all my heart, and I thought I could not love him more than I did right at the start. But when I look back over the mountains and the valleys where we've been, it makes me know I love him so much more than I did then." Thank you all for listening. I think that about does it for episode 19. In case you haven't heard, I have an email address now where you can reach me. That is thewitnesspod@gmail.com. You can contact me there to let me know what you think of the show. If you have any ideas for upcoming episodes, if you have questions about anything we've talked about on here, or if you have a critique or something you think would make the podcast better, please reach out. I promise to read every single email that comes my way, and I'll do my best to respond. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like or leave us a review. And like I said earlier, most importantly, share it with someone that you know could use some encouragement from it. If you want to be notified every time a new episode drops, make sure you subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram, where I post additional pictures, reels, and other content. And I'll leave links to everything in the show notes. That's it for this week, everybody. Until next time, we are adjourned.